Yep. Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics. This is episode number 2137, Doubleshot number 2031. I got two sci-fi trades for you. First up, it's a classic error from the character of Thor from the 1980s. And for a lot of people, this is considered one of the greatest runs in the history of the series. The run done by Walt Simonson. Yes. And yes, I do agree. This is one of the greatest runs this book ever had. Rob Liefeld has discussed this thoroughly in his podcast. He is a big fan of this run. I love this run too. This run is in these, now basically this collect issue of Thor, 337 to 348. We have the introduction to two brand new characters who are around this very day, though one of them is no longer alive. First one is introduced is Beta Ray Bill in the very first issue. And by the way, this issue here, this actually was adapted for an episode of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. It's similar to that, except that the whole shield stuff basically was cut out of it. So we have this mysterious spaceship pops up in orbit of Earth. We have this great stuff by Walt Simonson here. Yep. Walt Simonson in the 90s did also himself for Superman. He's also considered, Walt Simonson is considered one of the greatest Superman artists of all time because people love his artwork. He's up there with Dan Jurgens. I'm trying to think what other good ones. There's like Kurt Swan, obviously. What's another good artist that people really like? Aside from Walt Simonson, Dan Jurgens, and Kurt Swan, I can't think of any more besides that one. Maybe Neil Adams, maybe. So, story starts off issue 237 with basically Donald Blake. Yes, Donald Blake just walking through the park, and he's picked up by some goons and basically dumped a car. And the car is driven by Nick Fury. Yes, the white Nick Fury. Not the black one, the one who's his son now. Oh no, it's the original one. So he's brought up to Helicarrier. Yes, the Helicarriers used to look like this. Not really, and not anymore, and they're not even around anymore for stupid reasons. So Thor is asked to deal with this alien spaceship. Okay, so he comes on board. We do see a quick appearance here by Loki, who is bored out of his mind because he's in this really good-looking castle. Now, apparently he's been exiled. And here it is, the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. This is what he looked like in his debut appearance. This came when we picked up Thor's hammer. Of course, accused Thor of being a demon. Yes. The horse alien accused him of being a demon. So basically, Thor drops his hammer, Donald Blake shows up, and then, of course, where you have Beta Ray Bill pick up in the outfit, and of course, he gets summoned to Asgard, and the first issue ends basically with Donald Blake trapped on this ruined spaceship. Oh, by the way, then we have the very next issue, which this cover here, this actually is a homage to a Jack Kirby cover. You're probably thinking, which one? Journey to Mystery and number 1, which is technically the first annual for Thor. That's what this cover is homage to. Basically, it's the same exact cover, except that they replaced Hercules with Beta Ray Bill. So the Beta Ray Bill stuff, that takes the first several issues of this book. Yep, so basically, Donald Blake is one calling for Odin. So he's summoned to Asgard. There's also something here with the Warriors 3, Lady Sif is here. Oh, by the way, this also is still a period of time where Heimdall was still in his original Jack Kirby look before they changed because of the movie. By the way, here's Odin, the All-Father. Yep, that's the way Walt Simonson drew him. Also, for some reason, Nick Fury had an X on his outfit. I have no idea why. So then we see Lady Sif. Oh, she's getting jealous of. She just catches Thor with. Apparently, say Lorelei. If you're curious who Lorelei is, it's the Enchantress' sister. Yep. Except that this is actually not Thor. This is actually Loki. Yes, Loki. So eventually, of course, after some debate, and of course there was a fight between the two of them, And by the way, Bold of the Brave is this old guy here. Yeah, this guy here, right here, that's Bold of the Brave. That's how Walt Simonson drew him. You're thinking, wait, Bold of the Brave, the guy who was retconned by JMS to be one of another son of Odin? Yeah, here he's just an old man. It's like basically there's even an issue dedicated to him in here for him. And it's almost like basically Walt Simonson wanted nothing to do with him. So it's like the Beta Bill sub takes the first 2 issues of this run. And it's kind of in a way wrapped up. And there's also a tease of a romance between Beta Bill and Lady Sif. This kind of basically continues this very day. Where Lady Sif basically was related to Beta Bill. And of course he gets the hammer. Basically 339 is the debut of Stormbreaker. Yeah, it's basically forged along with his new armor, which he still has very day. He have Thor ride off on a chariot with goats. Yep, and we kind of pick up right afterwards. Yeah, and we kind of basically conclude the Beta Reveal stuff after just a few issues. And then with 341, we have Thor come back to Earth. Yep, Thor comes back to Earth, and well, thing is, he for some reason he can't get back to Donald Blake. He's stuck as Thor, so for the first time ever, and this is shocking, Thor takes off the Jack Kirby attire. Yep, Thor, who has worn this outfit since his debut appearance, finally wears an outfit that's not this. And he puts on a pair of blue jeans and a red shirt. Puts a pair of glasses and gets an alias of Jerry. Yes, Thor becomes Jerry. And then, for some reason, he runs into Clark Kent. I'm not kidding about that. He basically opens the door, and it's Clark Kent from DC Comics. And who's next to him? Possibly Lois. It is quite something. I'm not sure why the heck that Walt Simonson was going to do a cameo by Superman and Lois. 2 characters he would actually draw in the 90s. And of course we start this little plot thread that continues basically into the stuff we did with Massacre, where he calls himself he goes Jarson Stuttgart. Yes, that's his alias. He's basically he gets his own rent. That was a monster. This is kind of what Walt Simonson does. Basically, still has the Thor stuff there, but he's not Donald Blake anymore. It's like, we had Donald Blake, we're not doing it anymore. We're basically shoving it to the side now. Yep. And we actually have Thor sort of a semi-love interest with this redheaded woman. It's probably a good substitute because Lady Sif doesn't want to be anymore. Because, here's the thing. Thor basically have been on-off dating with Lady Sif since the 60s at this point. And they kind of, I think Walt Simonson want to put her to the side and just basically have Thor be with somebody else. Okay, fine. Yeah, and of course, yeah, so with Bold of the Brave in here. This just does really good stuff here. Walt Simonson's run is still critically acclaimed this very day. I agree. It's not overrated. It's just damn good run. There's a lot of air stuff in here. Usually just Thor fighting some home stuff. So they with the monsters. Great stuff for Thor. I give this book a 10 out of 10 because it's just pure awesomeness. It's that good. Alright, next up we have a book by another classic writer. This one I actually have met the writer of this one. We have Genis-Vell. Well, it's called Genis-Vell Captain Marvel. Yes, a 5-issue miniseries done by the guy who actually wrote the previous book that he was featured as a solo character, Peter David. Also, quick shout out to Peter David. I hope you're feeling better, man. Basically, I love your books. And I heard recently the guy had just got out of the hospital. Like, I actually am one of the people who Patreon him. And I think his wife, Caitlin, I believe her name is, or Catherine, I think it's Catherine, her name is, where she actually posted on his Patreon that he had just gotten to the hospital, but he actually had to go to rehab because the house was not declared safe. He's still going through health problems. I hope he do good, man. And I'm going to get positive of this book. Basically, in the way, this book is sort of a semi-follow-up to his run, his two previous volumes he did back in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. Yes, he did 2 volumes of Captain Marvel featuring Genis-Vell. Yes, and also Sideville's in here, along with Rick Jones. Marlowe's in here. Lady Death. We also see a return of Jerkel, I think her name is, the Skrull. Now, this is a character Peter David technically didn't work on during his run. I believe she first showed up pages of Dan. I think she showed up during She-Hulk, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Of course, this book, he's writing Rick Jones again. They do bring up the fact he actually came back. They do bring up what happened pages of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk book, which, great the fact that. Now, pretty much it's basically this book spun out of this very storyline, The Last of the Marvels. We also return of Fox Supreme in here, who is this crazy scientist for the Kree. Now, of course, Genis-Vell doesn't start looking like this initially. After the first couple issues, he does. But he starts off in his Legacy costume. Yes, originally he called himself Legacy. Of course, they say he's like a clone. It's kind of weird how Peter David writes in here. Now, of course, this back cover here, if you don't know this cover, this actually is a homage to a classic cover that came out in 1981, known as Marvel Graphic Novel Number 1, The Death of Captain Marvel. This cover has been spoofed, basically been homaged a few times over the years. I think prior to this one coming out, I think in the last 2 I do know of, they had a Deadpool variant cover that did this one, and it was also the final issue of Miss Marvel Volume 2. The book, when featured Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, did use this very cover. And basically, whoever the character is supposedly dying is basically on that cover. Now, Genis-Vell is basically back like that. We also have Juan Ramirez as the artist. The cover is now by Mark McCone and Antonio Fiba. Now, I don't know if I don't think these were the same artists who worked on those 2 volumes of the book. Now we get many Peter David. I don't know if he maybe he reread his run that he wrote, or the fact he probably did remember this one really well, because they bring up the fact that when he was blue skin blue, which turned blue. The fact it brought up basically Scylla, who is a sister, who is does kind of appear in this book, but it's not actually her. I believe this is the one that popped up from Infinity Wars. This is because he calls Rick Jones of Earth 616. So the one pops in this book is not technically Sideville. It's basically ultra reality version of her. Yeah. Despite saying that Moondragon pops in this book, she actually doesn't. No. That's actually his Lady Death in disguise. And we apparently see a return of Marlowe, and that's actually not Marlowe. It's actually Lady Death 2. Yep. So, yeah. And then we see appearance here by Tony Stark. Now, you might be curious, though. Has Peter David ever wrote any issues of Iron Man? To my knowledge, he hasn't. No, he never has. Has he written any comics featuring him before this one? Not to my knowledge. I mean, did Peter David have feature in his Captain Marvel book? I don't think so. I don't think he ever did. No. Captain Marvel, if you're curious though, the original volume, the first one we did was Volume 4. It was 35 issues. Look, I know it's Wikipedia, but it was 35 issues from 1999 to 2002, and then this relaunch from 2000 to 2004. This is actually the first one in 18 years he's worked on. Yep. The only other books he worked on at Marvel, aside from these books, he also made a return. He's had several miniseries returns to Spider-Man. He apparently loves doing Spider-Man. Yes, because he's done several miniseries for him. He actually just returned to Hulk just recently. He's done several Hulk miniseries in the last several years. He's currently working on Joe Fixit. Yes, that's what we're working on currently. For Spider-Man, the last book he worked on was Crossroads. Yes, I believe his first comic return after Spider-Man 29, well, featuring Peter Parker, he worked on the Cinematic Spider-Man series. It was a franchise of books. Has a book in 2 years. I think most of right now he's just working on some Hulk miniseries. Most recently, Joe Fixit. And this actually just came out just last year. I think this came up the same period of time, at least around close to it, as Maestro, World War M. He also did a Fantastic Four miniseries. You're thinking, really? Yep. He had 3 miniseries came out last year. There was New Fantastic Four, which is a follow-up to his book. Did he? You might be thinking, did he write the book for Fantastic Four? He did. I think he had a very brief run of Fantastic Four. I think he just wrote the New Fantastic Four stuff. I believe so. Because I don't really remember if he had, he also did the Prodigal Son stuff, but no, he didn't work on it. But you might be thinking, why in the world did he do the New Fantastic Four miniseries? Probably because he wrote Hulk. Yeah. But it is quite strange, though, that Peter David would write New Fantastic Four, because he's never done Fantastic Four that I can think of. No. He never has. I think he may have featured him at some point, but he mostly worked on Hulk and Spider-Man over the years. In this book. Mm-hmm. Of course, also X Factor, which he needs to do a follow-up X Factor. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, he also did recently a couple issues of X-Men Legends. Now, he worked in this book alongside with New Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think he was also working on his last miniseries for Maestro, World War M. Currently, he's just doing Joe Fixit. That's the most recent book he worked on. Which next year comes out just in 9 days. Yep. Which, that should be quite interesting to review when I get a chance to view it. Yep. So, pretty much in the way, just with this book, they also brought up the fact that he kind of basically outed Marlowe as bisexual, made Moondragon a lesbian. Yeah, he did that. Mm-hmm. And he also brought up in the book about the wedding of these two back in Incredible Hulk 418, I think it was. Because I believe there was a wedding of was that wedding of Bruce and no, it was definitely was Rick and Marla. That's when they got married, and they actually referenced it in this issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which great the fact Peter David is referencing his own work. I always like it whenever basically they have editorial note when it comes to this one. Mm-hmm. So we have basically kind of, it was also his return of the negative bands, which is so awesome. And look, appearance by Thanos, except it's not him. Nope. Next issue is not actually him. It's actually Jadzia. Yep. Jadzia. That's basically her name. Yeah. You might be curious. Like I said, this is a character, to my knowledge, is not a creation of Peter David. I don't remember her being a creation of Peter David. No, not really. It took a look. Oh, she is. Oh, okay. So apparently this is a creation of Peter David. Sorry about that. Yeah, because I think I did remember he did work on the book at some point. It is strange, though, the fact that he would basically come back to the character, which is interesting to say the least. Yeah. So, posing as Thanos. Also, Genis-Vell is back to his black look. Yeah, and of course also Moondragon. Yeah. This is just really good stuff here. Yeah. The nega bands, which apparently someone decided to have plants grow out of them. Yeah, seriously. And then Rick Jones puts them on. And it's like he kind of got back to life. Now, I appreciate Al Ewing brought this character back because I think a lot of people can easily point out, though, that killing Ralph Rick Jones was a mistake. And Peter David does a great job writing him this miniseries. And this guy here is apparently Vox Supreme, this blue alien. Yes. I mean, yeah, they mentioned Vox Supreme. Like, wait, that's Vox Supreme? Probably the head scientist for it, but yeah. And then we have apparently like, oh, let's call them reinforcements to basically have a flashback where you have Vision, Captain Marvel, this is Carol Danvers, Thor, Namor, and the Silver Surfer. Now, of these characters, as far as I can tell, Peter David, I don't think he wrote any of these characters for what I can think of. I don't remember if he did. But it's always great when writers like him bring back characters they previously wrote their books for, or at least books they featured them in, which is so awesome. This miniseries is by far just really good. As soon as I saw this at Barnes & Noble, I think it was not this past week, the previous weekend, I'm like, I had to have this because I am such a big fan of Peter David. And I'm going to continue buying the trades that basically for his miniseries that he's worked on. By the way, this book was so really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm also giving this book a 10 out of 10. It is that good. Nothing wrong with the book per se. Check it out if you're a fan of Peter Dave because you would be satisfied because the book is that good. It is strange though, last year, this is one of 3 miniseries he worked on. Yeah, despite the fact the guy's health is not all there, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing per se. I appreciate the fact he put out 3 miniseries last year, but currently he's working on 1 miniseries, Joe Fixit, and that's it. Nope, I have not heard anything if he's going to do another one. I have not heard anything, but if he is, well, get better first, then work on our comic book. I believe also, I think maybe Joe Fix maybe was working before he went recently in the hospital, but I know Peter Davis had health problems for the last decade, ever since he had his stroke, and the last time I met him was actually after he had his stroke. At the time, he had fully recovered from his stroke. This was about almost 4 years ago when I last saw him. It was at Tampa Comic Con. I don't know if he's going to come to that one this year or not because of recent health problems. It all depends upon him. The guy lives in New York, so it would be something for him to come down here. I mean, it's in a few months. All depends upon him. Okay, so that's episode of you. Next episode is going to be Dragon Stampede. Okay, next video. Bye.